Hello guys, welcome back to Custom Gamer. Today we're going to be playing a game called Europa. This is a tech demo created by a man called Quickfingers, and it was created for the 7-day FPS contest, which was held a fair while ago. I'm a bit unsure on the details, but essentially you had to create an FPS in 7 days, which seems like a crazy proposition, but if this is the quality of the entries, then I'm very impressed by it. It runs on the Unity engine, which is a free game engine that anyone can download and use in their own projects. Another Unity engine game which some of you may have played is Interstellar Marines, which seems to be getting a lot of press when they release updates. I was certainly quite impressed with it when I saw it. So I was reading an article on theastronauts.com which someone tweeted at me. It listed a bunch of survival horror indie games, and I was browsing through them and found this, and it looked really interesting, so I decided to take a look at it. So it's essentially, you crash land on Europa, which is a moon orbiting Jupiter, and essentially it's just you and the moon. There doesn't appear to be anything else here when you start the game. And it's essentially you just have to kind of survive on the supplies that you find. So you notice here we started out at the crash site by our crash ship. And you can sort of scan through the debris and find all these different bits of scrap metal and various other items which will come in handy later on. So you can see here we find a Build-A-Bot, and there's some various PDAs strewn around the crash site which you can read, which give you hints on how to use things and kind of give you, the kind of introduction story to the game. So you're basically told that, through some kind of automated setup in an emergency, you do an emergency crash land on the planet. The scavenging aspect is something I quite enjoyed, although it did take ages to kind of sift through the crash site and pick up absolutely everything. Me being a pack rat, we'll skip through most of that. But essentially you find various PDAs strewn all over the place which can give you various hints on things you can create using this Build-A-Bot. So this is kind of similar, it's almost like Minecraft in a way, where you're kind of mining resources from various different places and then constructing things using a workbench. Pick up a scanner there which we can use later on, that essentially gives us waypoints we can go to. And one of the things that really sucked me into this game at the start is just the atmosphere and feeling of loneliness you have on this planet. It's partly down to the music, and partly down to the fact they have this huge open vista, but it's just absolutely barren. And there's just absolutely nothing to see. Like, if you take like the typical valley in a game like Skyrim or Stalker or anything like that, there's typically lots of different visual landmarks which indicate, look, come over here, there's something awesome to do. In this game it's just kind of barren hills and mountains as far as the eye can see. You really get a feeling that you are the only living thing here. And as soon as you kind of disappear from the area surrounding your spaceship, there's just absolutely nothing to find, which I really, really enjoy. It gives you that feeling that these are the supplies that you've got, and if you waste them, then they're gone and you're not going to be able to replace them. That's really appealing to me. So you notice here in the PDAs, we found a recipe for a wheeled vehicle, along with the code for that briefcase that we got the rifle from. So our Build-A-Bot's going to create the car. Now obviously this is just a tech demo. I imagine in the full game, which is being developed as far as I know, there's going to be lots of different recipes, I imagine. Hopefully lots of different things you can build, spend your resources on. In the tech demo there's a couple of recipes. I couldn't really find anything else to make aside from this Jeep and the fuel cans and ammo. One thing I think could be really interesting in a game like this, where you have kind of very finite resources, is kind kind of diversifying playstyles by the fact that you could spend all your resources on weapons and ammo, which kind of reinforces a playstyle of going out to places and forcibly taking, you know, supplies to survive. Or you could spend all your resources on things like infrastructure and I don't know, things like hydroponic bays or something, and just focus on the survival aspect. That could be an interesting direction to take the game in. So yeah, we built our buggy, and we're going to go towards this waypoint. We used our scanner to get a waypoint. And the car, for the most part, it's a car, it works, but it's very, very easy to flip over like this, and if you flip the car, then you basically just have to restart the game. I couldn't find any way to kind of flip it back up onto its wheels. I had to restart 2 or 3 times by doing that, so I'm actually being really careful driving around here. So there's all kinds of like rocks and crystal formations which could be interesting, perhaps things to mine or, you know, otherwise deconstruct for use in the full game perhaps. Right now they just kind of add a little bit of visual detail. This is where things get interesting, but for me kind of in a bad way. So you kind of find the ruins of this, I don't know if you want to call it a village or a base or something, which is interesting. But it all kind of falls apart in a minute, which is really unfortunate. Yeah, so essentially here, I mean again, you know, 7 days to make a game, so you can't really criticise it for being basic, but basically you just walk backwards while shooting. But even like combat mechanics aside, you know, the whole thing that sucked me into this tech demo was just the feeling of loneliness and the feeling that you had to survive on, you know, living off the environment, and then just having all these aliens invade and turning it into, it's almost like Serious Sam, just run backwards and hold the fire button down. It just seems to do a disservice to everything the game was up until now, which is a real shame. I really hope that this is something that's backed away from in the full game, or at least if there are other creatures, that it's not as kind of one-dimensional as this. It was a real shame. So we used our scanner again. Unfortunately it looks like I cut the footage a little bit too soon there, so you missed me using the scanner, but we get another waypoint, just kind of back where we came. I'm being a bit more cavalier with the Jeep this time. The music as well is another thing that really sells the kind of overall atmosphere in this mod. It's just absolutely pitch perfect for the kind of atmosphere that the author wanted to go for. We'll just skip ahead here because we're just driving around that canyon for about 5 minutes. We eventually get to the waypoint here. It really reminds me of like Prometheus in a way, this environment. You kind of had this big valley with just these tiny little jeeps driving down it. It reminds me a lot of that film. And we find this, which is just really interesting bit of story at the end of the mod here. I love the idea of like people going crazy when trapped by themselves on a strange planet. It reminds me a lot of a film, oh god, what was it called now? Sunshine, that's it. Right, instead of people fixating on the sun and going a bit mad that way, they're kind of fixating on the Jupiter that's constantly in their vision in the sky. Really interesting idea. Hope it's explored further in the full game. So yeah, that is Europa. Again, it's a really interesting tech demo. I really like the ideas behind it, aside from the combat, which was absolutely awful, and I really hope that's not really a large focus in the full game. But check out the links in the description, because there are some videos of the newer versions of this with things like new buggies and new graphics and all this kind of stuff, and it's looking really, really interesting. So go and check it out and let me know what you thought. I'll see you next time.